Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, the weather today is beautiful. I mean, it's not very hot so far. A little breezy, but beautiful clear skies. Lovely, but that's going to change. At least that's what they're saying on the weather. That hurricane will be making landfall. It's already causing flooding in Houston, Texas. There's video, but I mean, Houston, Texas it's in a bowl, so it floods easily, but there's still already flooding going on there before it's even hit landfall. And they are predicting that the path of that will take it up through the Midwest, Arkansas, Missouri, my area. Many others will feel the effects of it. And so there's already warnings here where I live. There's already warnings out that by next week or later on this week, I guess I should say, that we will probably experience some flooding, some heavy rains, and possible serious flooding throughout the area. So for those of you that would live kind of in that path, definitely be getting prepared, because I mean, that's what we do. You know, I hear all the time about preppers that are, I mean, they're geared up and they're ready for World War III. They're ready for the Civil War. You know, they got their tactical out, but yet when a flood or a tornado or a hurricane or an ice storm or something like that happens, it throws them off. You know, they lose power and like, oh, what do I do? Don't be that kind of prepper, okay? We have to be prepared for everything, and look at it this way: when we go through these kinds of storms and stuff, it's just a big learning experience as far as I'm concerned. It tests you. And sometimes they're more severe, and so you get tested a little bit more. But definitely be ready for that. Also, I wanted to mention that I've talked a few times on here before about getting yourself healthy, because it appears as if they are another coffee cough disease may be coming our way en masse. I think you know what I'm saying. Anyways, there's a link down in the description below of a really good company, Star West Botanicals. I've used them for years as an herbalist, and you can buy bulk herbs from them. You're not buying it through Amazon or anything like that. It's directly from the company, and some pretty good deals there, especially to stock up on herbs, spices, teas, all that kind of stuff. So I just thought I'd throw that out at you. In other news, just the normal stuff that's going on with the whole election debacle. There's a big psyop being played out here, folks. You know, we've got various, I think they're trying to make it appear as this, if the left, the Democrat Party's falling apart, and then they'll come blindside us with something else. But in the end, I also think it's probably a bunch of hype to get people focused on the election in general, when the reality is it almost is irrelevant anymore. In fact, there was an article just the other day, yesterday, day before, to something to the effect, is it even necessary for the United States to have a president anymore? Is there even any point to it? And really, it's been for a very long time just this position that, you know, means almost nothing anymore. I mean, if you look at Trump's last presidency, he was unable to do a whole lot because the whole system was fighting against him, and it would be that way again, I'm sure. Anyways, that's not the stuff that I want to talk about. It's just the things that I ramble on for the first 3 or 4 minutes that irritate some of you. You want me to hurry up and get to the point, punch fast. Well, I'm from the Ozarks, right? We're just hillbillies out here, and that's how we talk. We gotta warm up the conversation first. What I want to talk to you about is something that I and we, meaning we as in our local area, deal with. And I know that most other prepper, homesteader people either currently deal with it or will eventually, and that's communications. Communications, I've said many times, is one of the most vital areas when it comes to preparedness, when it comes to getting ready for what may come. We have to have comms. In the military, it's one of the most important things. You know, most of your comms guys, they're not out there necessarily, you know, physically fighting in the combat, right? I mean, they're not saying that they're not capable of it. That's just not their job. Their job is comms. Their job is making sure that the radios and the satellites, and all of that is all functioning so that communications can go through. And it's considered one of the most important aspects in a battlefield. And it's been that way for centuries. Comms is extremely important. Back when it was just runners, you know, they would take a note and a guy would take off on a horse to go to the other side of the battlefield, whatever. It's extremely important. And today's world, we have a plethora of technologies to help us communicate. And yet still, I think pretty confidently that for kind of preppers and prepper communities, it's still a hurdle that we have to figure out and overcome. I can tell you here personally, in our area, I mean, we have radios, and those have actually been a bigger hurdle than most people think. Not acquiring them, you know, all of our people in our group have multiple different radios that are capable of, you know, different bands, CB, GMRS, MERS, you know, ham, UHF, VHF, HF, all of the different stuff, right? But our problem here is just like this. It's the same thing as working as a fireman in the fire department. It's that we struggle with the same thing, is the terrain. We have lots of hills and lots of deep valleys, and there are just places that radios, no matter how good they are, they just don't work. You know, there's no way to make them work. It's just it's physics, folks. You understand how radio frequencies transmit. It's just the way it is. So the point is while radios, whether they're handheld or the mobile in your vehicle or a big base station and a big tower, they have their limitations, and so we have to realize that. And then you know, we fall back to a lot of times cell phones, which for right now in today's world, that's fine, but they have their limitations. As many of you know that live out in the country, there's a lot of places that they don't work. I mean, on our property, you know, I can walk around on our property, and there's places I can get a signal, and I can step 2 feet one way, and it's completely dead, just absolutely nothing. And so that's a problem. There are multiple ways that a prepper and prepper community can communicate, and I'm telling you, this is what we have to deal with. This is a very extremely important topic that we need to face. We need to come up with solid solutions for communications now. How do you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your team, your tribe, your community, how do you communicate now? And then how do you expect to communicate when everything falls apart? And don't discount more old-fashioned ways. In our group, I'm not saying that we've done this, but the topic of like carrier pigeons have actually come up in a serious manner. And there's a serious consideration for that. We also utilize, I'm not going to tell you all of our secrets, so don't worry. But we also utilize flags. That's a very old way of doing it. You go back hundreds and hundreds of years on the battlefield, and each military typically had different styles of flags that meant different things that they could communicate in different ways. We've gone through we have that. There's other ways. I'm not going to give you all of our details. Then you have to, once you get into the communication aspect of it, okay, how are we going to communicate? Then you start to think of how are we going to communicate privately, which is much more difficult. Any type of, you know, transceiver radio, you know, ham, MERS, GMRS, any of that kind of stuff, it can be listened to. None of that's secure. I mean, you can get encryptions and stuff, but in the end, it's not secure. It's never, ever, ever. Same way with cell phones. You can get end-to-end encryptions and you can get all that kind of stuff, but in the end, it can be hacked. A good example of that is the story that come out a year or so or two ago of Tucker Carlson, one of his private conversations on an app called Signal. Most of you know what that is. And it's supposed to be one of the most secure end-to-end encryption apps there are. And come to find out, the NSA and the CIA were actively monitoring all of his communications on there. So there, you know, when it comes to technology, there's no way to make things secure in technology. And if there's someone that comes up on the chat here that comments and says, well, there's this. Okay, 99.99% of the average American is not going to be able to figure out a way to make things that encrypted. I mean, there may be a very tiny fraction of the American population that has the knowledge and the capability to make, you know, computer, cell, radio communications very, very secure. So let's just put that to rest. So you have to look at things like how to send encoded messages, how to encode them in a way. And there's ways to do that. I'm not going to go into that detail in this video because that's a lot. But there's ways to do that. The bottom line is that coming up with some solid ways for everyone to communicate, and then everyone has to get on board with that. That's been a hurdle for the last 4 years or so here in my area with people, is getting everyone on board with saying, okay, this is the radio that we're going to use, and these are the frequencies, and blah blah blah, and then getting everyone to get that radio, or this is the phone app that we're going to use to communicate with, and or this is the email, whatever it is. There's always stragglers, and I suspect it's going to be that way. Or they get the stuff and then they don't use it, right? They get the radio, and you know, a storm comes through and you're checking radio checks, making sure everyone's okay, and you don't hear from someone, and you come to find out, oh, well, I couldn't find my radio. I don't know what I did with it. It's been a few weeks since I've had it. Or, oh yeah, well, my radio was not charged, or this died, or I forgot my password for this from my phone app, and all that kind of stuff. These are the hurdles we have to deal with. And so my advice to you, coming from someone that deals with it, it's probably one of the biggest frustrations that I have on a local, real world local level, is that you should be running through training and drills on this. It sounds silly. You know, let's say you have a MAG group of 4, 5, 6 families. You're probably thinking we need to train in combat and defense and medical and all this. You need to have training on comms. You absolutely have to do it. You can't just assume that, you know, everyone's got a $20 Baofeng radio, they should figure out how to use it. No, you should have training on that. You should sit down more than once and say, okay, these are the radios, this is the frequencies, this is how they're used, this is our way of using them, this is, you know, how we communicate, what terms and phrases that we use, this is the phone app or the email service, or you know, whatever it is, and this is how we use it, and this is you know, how we communicate. This is a standard that we have, you know, in rough times, you know, this person's going to get a hold of this person, who gets a hold of this person, kind of like a phone tree thing, whatever. These are things that we have to be doing, because I can tell you from personal experience and from communicating with other groups around the country, this is always a big problem. And if it's a big problem now when things are pretty normal, I know that's relative, but you know what I mean, and things are pretty normal, what is it going to be like when things fall apart? You know, I mean, I'm just thinking of random things, it's actual situations. Oh, well, my radio's not working. Oh, I can't find the charger, so it's dead. Oh, the antenna broke on it. You know, I forgot the password for the app that we're using. That's what, you know, those types of things, they happen now. How much more are they going to happen when the stress level is 10, 20 times, 100 times worse than it is now, when things are just generally worse, right? So this is why you train. You develop that kind of muscle memory. I know that may not necessarily be as much a thing as we think, but whatever. We develop that. That's why we train, and we get things down to where they just happen, and we don't even really have to think about it. And communications is one of those. You also need communications so that you can just hear the outside world. Scanners, police scanners are still viable. Of course, radios. And then ways that you can communicate. I'm not saying you should do this because it's slightly illegal, but you can purchase FM radio broadcasters. And, you know, they're not big, where you can broadcast frequencies on regular FM radio frequencies. Small scale, maybe 5-10 mile radius of yours, maybe the most that you could do. But you know, in a rough time, if you try to get information out, pretty much everyone has an FM radio. There's things like that we could look at, that people should be looking at. because I'm telling you, as things get worse, the way that you communicate, whether it's, you know, passing a little note to someone, sending out pigeons, or, you know, on your radios, whatever it is, it's going to be really important. And I think that's a weak area for most people. It just is. It's just in my experience. Some of you may have it down perfect, but in my experience, most, generally speaking, have a real difficulty in dealing with their comms. And you need to not let that be your weakness, because that is so important. Work on your communications, whether you're just some individual lone wolf or if you're a community tribe mag. You need to be figuring it out and do it really fast, folks. I don't think there's a whole lot of time left. It's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.